welcome everyone to the Banking and Financial Services panel. So my name's Grant. I actually work for Prosport, who's powering this virtual career fair across a number of career sites around Australia. So firstly, actually, before we dive into things, I'd like to thank Chartered Accountants ANZ for sponsoring the fair. Your support is very much appreciated. So as a quick note, and just to sort of set aside a bit of an agenda per se, we've got around 30 minutes. So I've got some questions listed for the panel, which we'll skittle through first. But then we've got some time, we should have some time at least for some audience questions. So I'll be monitoring the chat in the meantime. So just feel free, students, to pop your questions in the chat and we can go from there and manage that at the end. So at the moment anyway, we've got three panelists, Ryan, Matthew and Evelyn. So Ryan, you're the Senior Manager at Commonwealth Bank. Do you want to tell the audience very quickly about yourself, your background and your role?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for that, Grant, and really happy to be here sharing my story with everybody. As Grant said, I'm a Senior Manager. I work in our business partnering team that partners up with our technology division within CBA, so specifically our Chief Data Office, so supporting that team there, about 1,000 people within the bank, supporting all the data and everything around that, and Commonwealth Bank's strategy to obviously be a better data-driven focused leading bank. As well as that, I also look after the graduate program for our financial services division. So bringing in all our new graduates and interns each year and moving them around with different teams across the group. So I also enjoy that as part of my role too.
Fantastic. Great to have you on board and part of this session. Next, I'll pass across to Matthew. So Matthew, you're the State Director of Lending Services over in WA. So you're still sipping on your cup of coffee at, what, 11 o'clock in the morning over there?
11 o'clock, yeah. So welcome everyone from a beautiful sunny day here in Perth, albeit working from home today. As Grant mentioned, I'm the State Director of an area within ANZ Bank called Lending Services. Lending Services is a specialist team that looks after the bank's higher risk customers, predominantly on the commercial or the business lending side of things, as opposed to the retail or consumer space. I've been at ANZ for 13 years. I've worked in various relationship management roles and sales leader roles before coming back into this lending services role that I'm in at the moment. And prior to working at ANZ, I worked at a chartered accounting firm called Mentha, which specialises in insolvency and restructuring. And whilst I was at Mentha, I completed my chartered accounting studies and also some insolvency qualifications off the back of finishing university many years ago with an accounting and finance degree.
Fantastic. Great to have you online. And Evelyn, so I won't have a go at pronouncing it. Is it Kremastos?
Kremastos, yeah, you did well.
Okay, that's not too bad for first run. You can see that we haven't rehearsed this. Evelyn, yeah, welcome. So you're the People and Culture Advisor at E&P Financial Group. Do you want to share with the audience a little bit about your role and E&P if they haven't heard?
Yeah, definitely.
What the company does?
Definitely. So yeah, my name is Evelyn. I've been with E&P Financial Group for 5 years now. I started as a HR team assistant after I completed my Bachelor of Business majoring in HR management at UTS, and I'm now an advisor within the team. So I'm a generalist in my role. So I'm exposed to all facets of HR. I also help manage our graduate and internship recruitment programs and am heavily involved in the overall recruitment of staff at the firm, which I thoroughly enjoy as it allows me to work with a variety of internal and external stakeholders. And in terms of E&P Financial Group, so of course we're a financial services business. We have a history spanning more than 30 years, and we really seek to provide high quality market leading financial advice to private clients, institutional clients and corporates. And we currently employ over 465 staff located across Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Brisbane and New Jersey.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining. And just in the nick of time, Jay, you've been able to join us as well. So Jay's at Bank of Queensland, up there, well, yeah, in Brisbane today. Just to throw you straight under the bus there, Jay, just as you joined the webinar on the call, we're just doing quick intros before we dive into some questions. So would you like to briefly tell the audience a little bit about your background and your role at BOQ?
Sure. My name's Jay Wee. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I think you're on mute or I'm having tech issues is the phrase of the last 12 months. I've been at BOQ now for about 5 months, and I look after their early talent and diversity and inclusion portfolios. Prior to that, I worked for one of the big 4 professional services firms looking after their graduate and intern recruitment for the last 3 years, managing their Brisbane and some of their regional offices.
Amazing. Great to have you on board, Jay. So if we dive into the questions, and I've got a little bit of a broad one to start off with. And I might hand the baton over to you, Matthew, for this, at least initially to kick us off. So what's the most important piece of advice that you'd give to students aspiring to work in the banking and financial services industry?
Yeah, sure. I think just keeping an open mind and embracing change. Banks, like any organisation, go through an enormous amount of change, and every year it's more and more. The word transformation is used every day. So you either embrace that or you get left behind. So I think it's just keeping that open mind. And also through my career within the bank, my advice would be don't be afraid of taking side steps. Sometimes taking side steps in different streams within a large organisation like a bank can actually give you a really solid foundation to enable you to step up when the opportunities arise. So just trying to always look ahead, maybe it's 5 years, to plan out where you're trying to get to and work on that solid base. And the last point just quickly is make sure you build internal and external networks, because they'll really hold you in good stead as well.
Great advice. And Ryan, would you like to share your take? What's if you missed the question now, so what's the most important piece of advice that you give to students looking to work in this space?
Yeah, look, can't share or exactly what Matt said as well around just resistance to change, right? Banks are changing all the time, and teams are moving left, right, and centre around it. So just having a really good resilience to change and adaptability to be able to change around that. And probably another thing as well is to just be yourself. In the workplace and things when you're applying for programs and stuff like that. We want to see the true you come out and all these types of things. So we don't want you pretending to be someone and then come in and then not sticking to your guns and yourself. So that's probably my biggest piece of advice. Great tips.
And in terms of your organizations in general, what are you looking for in an application from students? And this is a question that we get, I've already seen a couple coming into the chat. What do students need to show in order to progress, at least to the next round of recruitment?
I'm happy to start with that one. So we're definitely looking for an application that is well prepared and customised to the role and company. We're also looking for a well-rounded view of who you are. I would say someone who is passionate about the streams they've applied for and about developing their career within financial services. Someone who is open to continuous learning, and also I would say a dynamic team player with strong communication skills.
Amazing. Jay, I know that you're pretty passionate about students making targeted applications as opposed to the shotgun approach that sometimes happens. Do you have anything to say around that and how students can get ahead in the process or put themselves forward in the right capacity when applying for roles at BOQ?
Yeah, I think Ryan and Evelyn have made really good points about make sure you understand why you're applying to that organisation and that stream that you're applying for. The applications that stand out, they're really able to articulate why they know they fit in that team and that organisation, and that their values and things align to the organisational values. So the great students are able to articulate that, particularly in something like a video interview. And I think, as Ryan touched on, with being authentic and being yourself is really something that we look for now. We really just want to know that you're a good human, that you're coming in to learn, that you want to be a sponge, that you're a team player. And don't forget that some of the things that you're passionate about, whether that's sports or, painting or creative or dance, those are all things that enhance your application. And when you talk about something that you're passionate about, you come across much more engaged. So don't forget that some of the answers to those applications don't have to be banking and finance specific, because we want to hear about all your experience. Because as a student, that's, I think, one of the hardest things to do, is to gain meaningful experience. But Macca's, great training ground. Have you tutored? Have you coached? Have you shown leadership in a sport? Do you babysit after work? Don't leave those things off your applications, because those are all those small things that add up that make you just this really well-rounded candidate with some life experience behind you.
Amazing advice. Yeah, anyone else want to share?
Yeah, just quickly, Grant, I couldn't agree more, Jay. And I'm thinking about, how do you differentiate yourself? And it's through all those things that Jay talked about. If I'm interviewing potential candidates, I want to know what they do in their personal life, in terms of sporting, or maybe it's involvement in community, whatever it might be, just to help the appointer understand the values of the person and what's differentiating them, because it's those skills. The academic piece, ironically, I think, is sort of put to the side. It's important, but there's so much other components that go into selecting a really good candidate.
Also, probably just one thing too is the number of applicants I see come through that say, I want to work at Westpac, I want to work at ANZ, I want to work at NAB. I work at Commonwealth Bank, you're applying for Commonwealth Bank. So make sure you're constantly reviewing your applications. Look, we know we're applying for all different types of roles and things out there. So just make sure you're across that. And another thing too is also try and find something out about the company that the person reading your application actually doesn't know. So I see a number of applications that come out and I'm like, oh, I actually didn't know about that with CBA, that we were doing this or this or this. So my hottest tip is always read the annual report, because there's some really cool facts and statistics in there that the banks sometimes put in, whether it be around the environment or all those types of things that, can just stand your application out compared to somebody else.
Amazing. And for students who want to land a job with you, what advice would you give to them to help them survive and thrive? So once they've actually landed the role, whether it's an internship program or graduate program, to help them survive and thrive in that position. Maybe Evelyn, if I could hand over to you for this.
Definitely. So I would say do your best at what is in front of you at that particular point in time, and then the opportunities will follow. Get yourself into a good routine that will also allow for work-life balance, and don't be afraid to try new things, meet new people and learn from their experiences, work with and not against other graduates. And also embrace feedback and use it to help you improve. Take challenges as learning opportunities and learn as much as you can. And I think overall, try to make the most out of your first year and enjoy what you're doing.
Amazing. Jay, do you want to add
questions? I always tell my interns, you're asking the right amount of questions when you start to feel annoying. So the more questions you ask, the more you're demonstrating that you understand what's going on and that you're keen to learn the process of the team and the task that you're doing. So ask questions, make yourself valuable where you can. So if you're taking notes in a meeting, that might be something that, your manager goes, I can't remember that figure, and you've written it down, and so you've added value. As Evelyn said, network, meet people, leverage those relationships. And I think just be a good team player. So if you're light on work and you're keen to learn about something someone over there is doing, ask them for a coffee, or if there's anything that you can help them with. And if it is a fairly menial task, don't forget it's little baby steps. So you might only do a little review or send out a comm at first, but if you do a good job and you're a good team player, that starts to escalate and snowball, and all of a sudden you've opened up all these other opportunities for yourself. But I think the really big one is ask questions. And another thing, interns and grads sort of in that first period, things they learn quickly is set expectations. When do you need this by? Is it urgent? I don't have time today, but I can get it to you tomorrow. So that expectation setting can be really helpful early in your career as well.
Amazing. Matthew or Ryan, do you have anything to add on those points?
Maybe a couple of quick points. It's easy to be overwhelmed when you first start. There's just so much information coming at you. So try not to be overwhelmed. Easier said than done, but you'll get through it. Trust me, it takes some time. And I guess a way to help you navigate through that process is try and have a mentor internally, or a couple of mentors that you can go to informally and have the coffee that Jay mentioned, or whatever it might be, just to try and share your experiences and provide support. Really important.
Ryan?
Probably extra is just use your graduate, job or intern job title to your advantage, right? Everyone loves talking to the grads and interns around. So, use that as much. Don't put so much pressure on yourself as well. You're going to come into an organization, it's going to be big, scary and stuff like that. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to think that I have to deliver things. And just also around like trying to catch up with people and network and coffees and things, be mindful that if you're taking somebody's time, what can you provide to them? Because they've also got to get something out of it as well. It's not about the number of contacts you have, it's about the worthwhile quality contacts you've got. So don't just go and book your calendar out with 20 coffee invites to people and start meeting everybody. Manage that.
Definitely quality over volume or quantity. And it's like what we're talking about with applications as well, get those things right. Actually, just coming back to the application side of things, I was reading an article I think it's doing the rounds in America at the moment, where a student was applying via dropping off donuts to random offices that they want to work at. And it got me thinking, what's the most interesting or unique way that a student applied for a role at your organisation? Maybe you can provide some tips or tricks to the audience. Ryan, anything comes to mind, or?
Yeah, you're going to pick me first. I'm like, if there is somebody handing me donuts, that is a great start for me because I love donuts. Look, for me, it's more about, at CBA, we put on like career fairs and things like that. So coming along to that and meeting myself and our fellow HR reps as well is really good, because you actually get to see that face-to-face connection and things. I think obviously during COVID and everything like that, we're kind of losing that little face-to-face type thing, and everything's now digital. So it's a completely different mindset now. But for me, it's just, bring something different to the table. For me, like, what's something that's going to stand you out from somebody else?
Awesome. Anyone else want to share most random application that they've ever seen from a student, or unique ways that students could reach out to you? I know, speaking with a lot of employer clients, that they do sometimes get reached out to on LinkedIn and that sort of thing, and that kind of works. As you said, there are some ways to connect via people who are working within a business. Evelyn, Jay, Matthew?
LinkedIn's a really hard one. Just when you've been in the industry for a while and you have thousands of students connected to you, there's only so many sort of meaningful messages you can reply to. I think Ryan's right. If that organization is hosting a networking event, or maybe an event that's going to give you insight into the team or stream that you're applying for, which then leads to a more meaningful application, that's going to be really helpful. I also think if it's an event where you get to have a small interaction with sort of myself or someone from the business, and you have a really great interaction and it leaves a good impression, that can be really helpful when it comes to sort of your application or your video interview, because it's saying, I've met Ryan. We had a great conversation about travel prior to COVID. I can see his video interview that he's really nervous here, but I've had that interaction to understand that this is just nerves. I think as well, that just gives you a bit more. I've seen a lot of sort of random and reach out, but I would say that sort of attending events that organisations are holding is really key, because so many times I've put on events and students just don't come. And so that's really your foot in the door, where you get to go into an organisation or see behind the curtain and meet some people and speak to them. And that can be a really great way to either A, have a better understanding of the organisation and the stream to make a more meaningful application, or B, you speak to someone directly in that stream or the recruitment and HR team that helps your application just sort of that little bit more when you come to reviewing. So there's no magic bullet. It is a highly competitive programs, intern and grads, and I think you just have to be in it to win it.
So hint, students on the call, we're about to roll in 10 minutes into employer booth. So if you're interested in working in the banking and financial services industry, all these people on the panel will be on call, I believe, in their booths, or if not, their organisations will be. So go speak to Jay. That's the call. One final one from me before because I can see there's quite a few questions piling up in the chat, so we'll get to them now. So in terms of, just in one sentence, why should students apply for jobs within your organisation, whether it's internships, graduate positions, and whatnot? Who would like to take that first?
I'll kick off if you like. It's going to sound a bit corny, but I'm going to quote ANZ's purpose, which is to help shape a world in which people and communities thrive. And I feel like if you don't have some connection to that, then it's perhaps the wrong either job or organisation for you.
Awesome. Evelyn?
Yep, I'll go next. So also looking at our core culture values that we have at the firm, we have a passion and dedication for service excellence. We foster collaboration and camaraderie, and we support further training to fast track your success. We also provide opportunities to work across diverse business areas. So I would say they are the 4 key points as to why students would want to work for EMP.
Amazing. Jay, what about you and BOQ?
BOQ, we understand we are a smaller organisation, we are a regional bank, and I think that is also one of our strengths. Being a smaller organisation, you sort of, the experience is just different than sort of your ANZs and your CBAs, which are so large and, have all these wonderful tech and all these other things. But BOQ's evolving and changing so rapidly that you really are working on things that are getting implemented immediately with the leaders. So that's been sort of my experience in the last 5 months of being with them, is just a smaller organisation that is growing so quickly that they're just desperate for people to come in that are eager and keen and to add value. So I think the other positive for us is we're Queensland based. So if you're a Queensland student in a pandemic, we are head office out of here, so that I think that is attractive in the market right now for students wanting to stay a little bit closer to home this year.
Yeah, most definitely. Very nice weather as well. Ryan, what about you?
Look, obviously it's pulling the purpose card out, right? So I guess with CBA, the purpose is to, improve the financial well-being of customers and communities. So for me, financial well-being is something I'm really passionate about. I think it's just such a really important issue for students and younger people in today's society, in today's economic status around, first-time home buyers and things like that. So that's something that just resonates with me. Jay alluded it in terms of the tech side of things as well, which I am really interested in too. So, all the banks are great. At the end of the day, it's more just things that align to your values and where you feel that you could help. But for Commonwealth Bank, we're just looking for people in our graduate program that are there, want to have a go and help out and bring them full selves to work.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing. So I might turn now to the questions in the chat. And this one comes up quite a bit in terms of eligibility within your programs. So the question is, with the majority of graduate programs say that they only accept applications from either Australia or New Zealand citizens or students who have a PR, i.e. permanent residency, what are the options available to international students? Who wants to have a go at answering that?
I will. Unfortunately, at BOQ, we are only able to take students with Australian, New Zealand citizenship and permanent residency. At this stage, we're not in a position to take international students or those on visas. And just to answer Liam's questions, it is essential to apply for internships, especially at BOQ, because we hire our grads exclusively from our interns. So we won't go out to market for straight grads at all.
Great, thanks for sharing.
We're pretty much the same as BOQ for CBA as well. So we basically, Australian, New Zealand residents as well as permanent residencies. So very similar there.
Okay, great.
We're also the same at EMP Financial Group. Just wanted to add that as well.
ANZ, Matthew?
I don't know for sure. It's not my area of expertise, but I suspect it'd be similar to other banks.
I believe so. But the surest thing is that maybe on the careers site on ANZ, you should have whether you accept it in your eligibility criteria, whether you accept applications from, so check students are online who are interested in ANZ, just to confirm, check that out. Another question, so if a student doesn't have any work experience, how would they be best to sort of start writing their resume? Any tips on students who don't have work experience?
I'm happy to have a go at that one quickly. I think back to what I was saying earlier is how do you differentiate yourself? So if you don't have the work experience aspect, what other things do you do? For example, it might be involvement in community, it could be sport, it could be a whole bunch of other things. So it's about what else makes you as a human being attractive to an employer.
Definitely. I'll also just add onto that. Sometimes students won't put work experience that they might not think is relevant in their CV. So any work experience is relevant. Retail, hospitality, that's relevant. So it doesn't need to be experience to the particular role that you're applying for. It doesn't necessarily need to be another internship. So I would just say that any work experience is key.
Most definitely, because there's transferable skills there as well, right?
Of course, definitely.
Another question just from the chat is, so we've got a psychology student that's on the line and they're interested in working in the financial world. Is there any opportunities for psychology students within the 4 panelists?
I was just thinking this, so I'm going to take this one.
Sure.
Banking and finance is so more than just banking. And so you need to think of an organisation as a broader organisation and think of people and culture, risk. Risk is a huge area at banks. Financial crimes, risk, collections, think about cybersecurity, data protection and information. So think about all those areas of the organisation. You've got all your typical back-end functions in terms of payroll, people and culture, finance. So think more broadly about a bank as just a functioning company than just that customer-facing banking analyst money part. So yes, psychology students, there is definitely a place for you. I think you just maybe need to look at the organisation more than just that narrow stream that that students I think of immediately when they think of a bank.
Amazing. Matthew or Evelyn or Ryan?
I think that Jay did a good job of covering that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, similar to Jade, like banks are huge, right? So there's so many divisions out there and they're always changing from time to time. Yes, there are some particular, divisions in there that do require qualifications. So like for my graduate program, we're heavily on the financial services side of things where, we're looking for accountants and moving on to get your CA and things like that. So that's quite specialized, but there are some other areas of part of the bank as well, like Jay was saying, around risk and like data and all those types of things where you can actually just learn the skills on there, but also bring the skills that you're learning too. Like we always like to hear of people outside the box that can bring anything that you've learned from that psychology degree in, because you're bringing the different ideas to the table.
I mean, I just have a girl who's just finished a degree in fashion. So don't limit yourself just because your piece of paper says one thing. I think if you're really passionate and that's where you know you want to be. You can do so many other things outside of formal education or university that help upskill you in those areas. So there's all the MOOCs courses, there's all self-learning. I just hired a guy who was building networks in his garage. So, you know, don't forget to include, you can't have him, Ryan. And so, you know, like, think about what you're doing outside of your formal education that really helps support your application. So I think students really got pigeonholed into this university and GPA as my be all and end all, but just hearing from all the panelists that we're really looking at you as a whole person and well-rounded. What are you passionate about? What are you doing outside of uni? And how do those things, that creativity and drive and grit, going to support you joining the organisation?
Fantastic. So let's wrap things up there, because I can see that we've just ticked over 2:30, or at least Australian and Sydney time. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank you, or thank all of our panelists rather. I'm sure that the audience got a lot out of this session. Just as a quick note to the students, when you're actually leaving this focus session, just remember to exit out of this event and then jump back into wherever you've accessed this focus session, because the panelists or their organisations will actually be live online now, answering further questions. I can see there was a few that we didn't get to in the chat, but go and connect with the team at Commonwealth Bank or ANZ, ENP or BOQ to find out more about their opportunities. So yeah, once again, thank you for everyone for your time. Any last closing words before we sign off? Or
BOQ is opening applications for our intern program in around July or August if you're interested in joining.
Amazing. Nice final pitch, Jay.
Booth 76 for CBA, if you want to come along and have a question. And also Jay's person, I'm going to try and steal them. No.
He's hunting on LinkedIn already.
I'll also just add, we have our graduate program open, applications are open now, and come and chat to us if you want to hear more.
Amazing. Thank you once again to all the panelists. Let's sign off the session. Speak soon.